All right, today we've got Evan Mceachran on the podcast. Evan is a pro free skier. He's a two-time Olympian. He's a 2 times X Games medalist. He's currently competing at the top of the sport. He's a tough competitor and a super nice guy. Enjoy. Thanks for coming out, dude.
Dude, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Good to see you again. Been a minute.
Been a long time.
Yeah.
Where'd you come from today?
I just came from Oakville today.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been back home for about a week now, and then tomorrow I jet off again.
Where are you going?
I'm going to Mount Baker in Washington, and then Grouse in Vancouver for an Oneil shoot, and then flying from there to Park City in Utah for another shoot over there.
Do you know your air miles over the winter?
Yeah, I actually just hit 75K like 2 weeks ago, which is unreal. So hopefully some more free upgrades in my future.
That's insane. So what's your travel season like, and is there even an off season anymore?
There kind of is. I mean, through COVID, there was definitely more of an off season than there had been prior to that, with not being able to travel in the summer without doing quarantines and stuff. So I kind of had more time at home to take some chill time back here with friends, have a couple beers, chill on the lake kind of thing, which I really liked, and I think I'll definitely do a little bit more of that in the future, It's nice to take a break from everything and separate yourself for a little bit, as I'm sure you could relate to that.
Yeah, I always find, and maybe it's like more of a tighter timeline than that, like I have my best progression on whatever it is, even if it's a new sport, like I started golfing, is during your downtime. Like when your brain can subconsciously work on the stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also just think it's nice to like turn your brain off of the specific sport that you focus on, go do some different stuff. Because at least for me in skiing, it's like when I'm out there training and learning new tricks, it's super dangerous and you can get really injured doing that stuff. So I like going and, wakeboarding or lake surfing or skateboarding or anything like that and doing small little stuff where you get that same satisfaction and throughout the learning process without putting everything on the line,
Yeah. Do you get fatigued like from adrenaline? Do you think?
I think so. I think throughout the contest season, it's more you get fatigued with like the whole competition process. We go like every weekend, different event, different place, lots of travel. You go there, you do your 2 days of practice, then you got qualifiers and then finals the next day. And you're kind of just going through the motions at that point. And you kind of forget about why, or it's not like you always do, but it's easy to fall into a trap of forgetting why you got into skiing and enjoying the process of it and more just like going through the motions.
Because it's high intensity. And and the nerves are there.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
But I wouldn't change it for the world at the same time.
Yeah.
One of my coaches when I was younger, we were talking about how like crazy of a feeling it is at the top of a contest. And you have that like the butterflies in your stomach, kind of sometimes feel like you're going to puke. And I was like talking about how I hate this feeling. And he's like, dude, well, I had that back in the day too. And since I stopped competing, nothing else has done that for me. So enjoy it while you can. And that was a good way for me to transition into loving that feeling and learning to love that, which I think helped me in the competition mindset and being able to perform under that pressure.
For sure. Because that feeling, like it's how you associate it mentally. Like that feeling, it actually feels like just physically really good.
Yeah.
It like feels really good in your body.
Yeah.
But when you're like all freaked out about it, you have this like negative connotation. But if you can switch the mental,
exactly,
then it's like you can really enjoy that feeling.
Yeah. And I think that was a moment for me where I'd just got onto like the professional circuit and I'd been kind of struggling to perform, way more nerves, way more pressure. And he brought that up. And I think that was kind of a turning point for me where I started to do well after that. Cause I was like, dude, just enjoy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've already come this far. You like this feeling. You know that. So just learn to embrace it.
Oh, that's good. So that was when you're young. I want to start at the beginning of your career because I love talking about kind of, everyone started doing sports when they were young and then how that continues on for some people. So did you start skiing like when you were super young?
Yeah, I mean, my parents told me, I don't really remember, but I guess when I was still a year old, I got on skis for the first time, crying and screaming and don't want to be there at all. But yeah, so.
Were they big skiers?
Yeah,
like obviously.
They were kind of more like weekend warriors, but they skied throughout their whole lives, and they lived for it. They loved like after the work week going up and skiing or going on, the March break ski trip or like a trip to Whistler once a year. So they were always into it. And my brother, obviously, he's 4 years older than me. He'd started skiing at that point, and
Yeah.
I guess they decided why not throw him on skis while he still won.
That's great. So and you guys are living in Oakville at that time?
Yeah.
Okay. What do your parents do, or your dad does what do they do for work?
My mom is in sales for a mental health company. I think I don't remember the name of it, but so she's in that, which is awesome. She's a huge advocate for mental health, and it's awesome, because I deal with a lot of pressure, and she can always be there for me when I'm sort of bumming on things. And my dad's a financial advisor.
Right on. So where did you start skiing? I'm assuming it was Glen Eden, just because it's close.
I believe the first place I ever skied was, I feel like an idiot for not remembering exactly, but maybe Hockley Valley or something like that.
Somewhere around here.
Yeah, and then that transitioned into like Glen Eden. There's a club there called Milton Heights, and so we skied there throughout my childhood until I was like 10.
So the listeners, Glen Eden's like 5 minutes from where we're recording this podcast.
Yeah.
Explain to the people what Glen Eden's like.
It's more of a speed bump than a hill, I would say, let alone a mountain. But it's amazing, and the atmosphere there is great. Everyone's just out having a good time, and no one cares that it's just a little hill, It's still so much fun to get out.
So your parents are taking you skiing every weekend. Your brother's, I guess, 4 or 5 at this time. And then how did that progress into, like, I guess, competition? Did you go into the park right away, or did you start, like, racing or moguls or something?
Yeah, so I started out racing, which I'm super grateful for now. I mean, at the time, I didn't love it, and that's why I kind of ended up going the freestyle route. But yeah, so I was doing like racing programs at Glen Eden through Milton Heights, and I would always kind of sneak off and get out of the race course. They'd be like, "Where'd Evan go?" And I would be building little jumps on the side or sneaking off into the terrain park. And I remember breaking like 4 or 5 pairs of race skis one year because I kept sneaking in and trying to hit rails on them.
Oh my goodness.
And we were actually going to the store and getting them warranted as if I'd hit a rock or something like that. But by the end of the year, that stopped to work because, I mean, they kind of figured there was something else up there.
That's funny. I actually did the same thing with a couple pairs of skis and like got them warranted just because I was a little kid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I guess like it was so new. The sport was so new. Do you remember like seeing your first pair of twin tips, or you're that much younger than me where it was kind of already a thing?
I think it was already a thing. I don't necessarily remember seeing my first pair, but there was also not that many people skiing in the park at Glen Eden. There was no one really training it or competing. It was just kind of there, like a couple of rails and jumps. And I remember one of the guys, I think it was a brother of someone on my team, he was on the Ontario team at the time. This was Mike Bordage was his name.
Okay.
And I remember meeting him, and he had twin tips, and he was doing flips on skis, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever. And then the place that I skied at Glen Eden, Milton Heights, it was like a club on the mountain.
Yeah.
And they didn't have a freestyle program, but this was right after I'd broken all these pairs of skis and kind of knew I had to go into the freestyle world.
Yeah.
And we convinced them to start a freestyle program, and Mike Bordage ended up being the coach. So we had, I think, 3 guys on that team, and just went and ripped around, and that's when I started doing some contests around Ontario.
So you started competing out of Glen Eden? Like you were riding at Glen Eden and started competing there?
Yeah.
And you're competing in Ontario. How old were you at this time?
This was when I was around 9 or 10, I think.
So you're 5 or 6 years young. You're 5 or 6 years younger than me. So there's like if I was 9 or 10 and I went to go compete, there was no one to compete against.
Yeah.
Be competing against a 15-year-old guy.
Yeah.
So you're competing, and you're actually competing against guys your age or close to it. Did you have success right away? Like, were you just like, boom, right out of the gate, like winning?
Not really. Not that I remember. I think there was only like 4 guys, and this is when there was like age groups and stuff. So there was only probably like 3 or 4 guys in my age group. So, I mean, I was getting on the podium.
Okay. Yeah.
But the ratio to get on the podium, it wasn't that difficult. But yeah, I remember I would come like second at some of this stuff. But this is when I was doing like slopestyle, moguls, and half pipe, kind of just all the freestyle stuff, because that's how you start out doing it all.
Right.
And then eventually, as time went on, I was like, yeah, I don't want to do moguls or half pipe.
Yeah. No, fair enough. And you made the transition just to slope style, which for people who don't know is just jumps and rails and boxes.
Yeah.
In a course. So how does that progress? Like, you're competing in Ontario. Do you just compete in Ontario for a bunch of years, or you're constantly trying to go to new places and compete in new places?
Yeah. So the next step for me was when I was, after that first year of doing a freestyle program at Glen Eden, my parents got a place up in Collingwood, like a chalet up there. So we started skiing at Craigleith and doing more contests up there. And I wasn't doing moguls anymore at this point, and just started doing that. And then eventually started doing well in those, which led to making the Ontario team, which then led to leaving the province and, going to stuff in BC or Alberta, and kind of just all like expanded from there.
And how did you find the competition outside of Ontario? Was it all Ontario and Quebec kids winning, or were there kids out in Calgary and BC that were killing it as well?
Oh, there was people killing it everywhere.
Okay.
And I think that's like one of those stages where you're like all of a sudden eye opener, because this is before Instagram and social media. So you have no idea who these kids are or what they can do on skis. And you go out there and you're like, oh, I can do my 540. I'm going to win again. And then you go out there and there's kids doing nines and stuff. And you're like, oh, okay, well, got to go back and do some more work. So
you were in a program at Craigleith, and is that a private hill?
Yeah.
Okay. So you guys had a private kind of membership there?
Yeah.
And you had a coach there?
Yeah.
And then, so you're competing around there. And when do things kind of shift for you, and what age where you're like, hey, like, I'm good at this, I'm going to continue doing it? Like, are you just kind of plugging away, and does something click ever, or is it a slow progression?
It was a pretty slow progression for me. Like I went from the Ontario team to a team based out of Calgary called Winsport. Started training with them. It was more travel and I think a little more high performance at the time.
Okay.
And so I was doing that and not necessarily doing well in many of these events, but I think one summer something just clicked for me. Like, I really want to do this. I want to start doing well in the competition side of things, and just learned a bunch of new tricks over the summer. And then the next season went out and was able to like start getting on podiums at these NORAM level, just like North America level contests.
Okay.
So people from the States and Canada, etc. And then that's when I made it onto the Canadian team.
So how do you make the progression over the summer for a non-skier listening? How do you learn these new tricks over the summertime?
Tons of visualization, lots of visualization. And I think that's just kind of what, like doing a competition season and not ending on a high or not having like the best results throughout the year. I just ended super motivated. Like, I want to go out there and do well next year. So it was just like thinking of tricks, visualizing tricks. And then you get a couple of weeks of training on the glacier in the summer. And back in those days, it was the water ramps. So that's like a dry slope material, and then you launch off a jump into a pool. So you can try and learn stuff on that and then bring it to snow the next winter.
So you kind of had a pivotal summer, even if it's just mentally, and you show up and you do pretty well that year.
Yeah.
Like exceptionally well, enough to make the Canadian team.
Yeah.
And what does the Canadian team look like that? Is that like a reserve team for the Olympics? Like, is there...
There was like...
I guess there wasn't even the Olympics at that time.
There was at that time. This is now probably around 2014. I think that's when I made the team. Or
when was the first skiing in the Olympics?
2014 for slopestyle, which is what I do, yeah.
And halfpipe was before that?
Halfpipe was the same time for skiing, but for snowboarding it was in 2010, I think.
Okay, so 2014 was the first Olympics, and you made the Canadian team that year.
Yeah. I made it onto the team, but I didn't go to those Olympics. There wasn't a lot of people on the team at the time compared to now, and they brought me up kind of as like a younger guy, someone to like build up and have someone for the future. So I didn't have a shot at those Olympics.
How old were you?
I was, trying to do some quick math here. I think I was like 16 or something like that. Okay. So 15 or 16 when I made the team. Yeah, pretty young.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was nice because then I got like to get used to hanging around those guys and to the coaching and the whole system and traveling with them prior to like kind of getting to that higher level where I needed to be.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I just know this from knowing your brother. He was competing as well. Like, you guys went and on that Calgary team together? Is that the case? And then, like you're saying, he's 4 years older. You made the Canadian team and he didn't. Is that right?
Yeah, I made it that season, and then he did another year with that team in Calgary.
Yep.
And then he got brought up to the development team of the Canadian team after that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I want to like jump ahead. Like he doesn't ski at the same level as you right now. Was that like, did you guys compete against each other? Was that hard for him, or, you know, you being the younger brother? I know as an older brother, like it would kill me for my little brother to be better than me at that thing I'm pursuing. Was it hard for him?
I don't think so. Like, because we were traveling together and doing these contests together still, and honestly, like between everyone there, we were the most supportive of one another.
Sure.
Like I would help him try to plan his run. He would help me try to plan my run. We'd give each other tips and stuff. And then, I mean, if there was anyone else in the field that I was rooting for, it was obviously him.
Right.
And yeah, he's been like so incredibly supportive throughout everything and all the success I've had and stuff. And I'm super proud of the success that he had as well. He's never shown it to bother him. If anything, he's just crazy excited for me. And
right.
Yeah,
and
that's super special for sure.
An awesome skier, obviously.
Incredible skier. Still so good. Like retired from competing probably 2016 or 17, but like he'll still go out and he can still do doubles and stuff. Like
which
it's
is
pretty
insane.
crazy. Double flips, that is.
Yeah. Insane. So you're on the Canadian team. When does like X Games and Dew Tour come around? Is it that year?
That wasn't right away for me. So my first year on the Canadian team, I was doing like getting some World Cup spots, but not at every event because of like the allocation between the people who've qualified to get those spots. So sometimes I'd get one, and then...
And World Cup is how you qualify for the Olympics, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I do a season with a couple of those events, and then at the end of that year, there was the World Ski and Snowboard Festival in Whistler, WSI they call it, and I got invited to that. My brother was there as well, and I ended up somehow winning that event kind of out of nowhere, and that was my sort of moment of getting noticed in the industry.
So the World Ski and Snowboard Festival in Whistler, breakthrough, you win it.
Yeah.
And do you compete against any, like, you beat some big name guys that you're like, holy shit?
Yeah. So it was kind of like a moment that I don't think a lot of people knew who I was before that. And then they're like, wait, who's this little Grom up on the podium? And I was standing next to like my idol, like Bobby Brown.
You beat him.
And Jossie Wells were the two other guys on the podium. So
Oh
that
my
for
goodness,
me was like absolutely insane. And then everything just kind of like came to fruition from there. You know, the night before that event, I signed with my agent and then got a good result. That was the end of the season, no more contests. So then I was able to start getting sponsors and then got invites to the big contests like Dew Tour and X Games the next season. So that's kind of when it was really like, okay, this is the real deal. Like you're on the circuit now.
So it's by invite is how X Games happens. Yeah. Okay.
And so honestly, X Games is the most cutthroat event to qualify for because it's like there's only 10 spots.
Okay.
The Olympics has 30.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's different, though, because the Olympics is tough with nation cutoffs and stuff. You're only allowed to have 4 per gender, per discipline, per nation.
Right.
Whereas X Games, say there's 6 good Americans or Canadians, they're going to get the spots because they're the best.
Right.
But the Olympics, some people are the best and get cut off, and other people get spots who wouldn't necessarily be there otherwise. But yeah, it's a weird system how it works.
So do you think X Games is, to win X Games, I mean, the Olympics is so big, but to win X Games in the niche little skiing world, is that bigger than to win the Olympics?
I think like for me, winning X Games would mean more because when I grew up skiing, the Olympics wasn't a thing. So I always dreamed of X Games.
Right.
Going there and then winning there. But obviously winning the Olympics would be like crazy for like outside of the ski industry. Everyone knows what that is. Most people know what X Games is, but the Olympics is just a way bigger deal. It's more eclectic. It's only once every 4 years, that kind of deal.
Yeah. So you got an agent. Did he approach you? or did you approach him? Like, what was the deal there?
So one of my coaches set me up with him. He knew him from back in the day. JF Cousin. This is one of my coaches. He's one of the pioneers of free skiing.
All-time legend.
Yeah. Started, helped build the first twin tip that ever existed.
Yeah.
So pretty good guy to have on your side. And he saw something in me, and he introduced me to this agent, Mike Svenningsson. We call him Jersey. And so he kind of helped me out that season before I had my breakthrough moment, just getting free gear from sponsors and kind of getting me in the door and in their head so they know who I am. And then, everything kind of came to fruition after that big result.
So you have that result, and over the course of the summer or whatever, you get your invitation to do tour X Games. Did you land any sponsors with that agent?
Yeah. So right after that was when I got my first actual contracted paid sponsorship stuff.
Before that, it was just skis and
free gear and goggles and helmets and jackets and that sort of stuff.
And who was that first sponsor?
The first sponsor was Monster. I think was my first actual contract.
What was your first little sponsor though, where they were giving you gear?
My first sponsor ever back in the day was Solomon,
okay.
And that was a ski brand. So I got buy a pair of skis, get one free, or something like that back then.
But dude, it doesn't matter. Any
you
kid...
are so fired up at that point. You're so fired up. It was the coolest thing ever. And I remember sending the email of my wish list and stuff, and then 2 weeks just sitting by the front door every day, peeking out the window, waiting for a package to show up. Literally Christmas. Yeah.
Anyone who grows up doing action sports to be sponsored, that's it.
Yeah.
Right. That's the thing. Oh man. So yeah. So then this summer, you're anticipating this big season coming up.
Yeah.
And you land Monster Energy as a sponsor, which has to be pinch yourself, surreal.
Yeah, it was absolutely everything was just wild that year. So much was coming to fruition of what I'd dreamed of as a kid. And it was a lot for sure. I went into the next season with a lot of pressure on myself, and it definitely added a lot of stress, and I didn't do so well that next year. I think a lot of stuff happened and I felt just pretty overwhelmed by it all, so I couldn't perform my best.
So what, you were falling?
Yeah, I was just I was trying runs that were too hard for me to try almost because I wanted to win so bad, but I didn't necessarily have to be doing those tricks to do that. But I was just so convinced that everyone else was going to do crazy stuff and I had to do something crazier, and then I would try the most ridiculous run I could imagine at the time and something would go wrong in it.
Right.
So yeah, it was the first year under pressure, trying too hard kind of thing.
So how old are you this time? 16, 17?
I think I was 17 at this point, yeah.
Okay. So young mentally, young physically, competing against men.
Yeah.
When you show up to X Games, I'm sure you were standing next to idols. Guys you looked up to.
It was ridiculous, to the point where you're scared to talk to them.
Yeah.
As a human, just I've seen you on the internet for the past 10 years of my life and watched you in movies. You're actually a real person. This is super weird.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. But man, before that, beating Jossie and Bobby Brown, that had to have been they must have given you props.
Yeah. No, that was awesome. And that was cool for me because I felt I kind of had worked for it and then proved myself in that moment and earned that spot to X Games and do tour.
Yep.
By getting one proper good big result and proving that I deserved to be there. So that took off a little bit of that pressure, but it was still just crazy being around them. And because the season prior, there was only a couple of contests where I was around them.
Sure.
And other than that, it was the same people I always competed against. So just thrown into a new world where none of the people who you're usually with are actually there. So you just feel super out of place.
Right.
Yeah. I was watching this on TV last year with all my friends on my team at a competition in Calgary or something.
Right. So you're still so young at that point. I've got a question, thinking about kind of any pro's career. I always want to know when that point was when they said, okay, I'm going to do this for a living. But did you feel pressure to have go to university and have a white collar job, or were you already so successful so young that it wasn't even a question?
I think That's an interesting question for sure. And like throughout high school, my parents like had an emphasis on high school and like getting good grades and stuff because it's a good fallback. And I always thought that was super important too. And I liked that. And I'm happy that they kind of applied the pressure for me to work for that because at the time, obviously being a kid, like that's not necessarily my priority. I just want to be out skiing. So I kind of like left myself with both opportunities. And then by the time I graduated high school, I'd started like, I had my first sponsors and like I was actually doing something with it.
Yep.
And so that made it easier to like make the decision to like, okay, for now, like I'll do this. I'll take some years off. I'll defer acceptance at university and kind of go do this skiing thing for a while and see how it all pans out. I can always go back and do that later.
Right.
And then here I am now, like 8 years later, and yeah, still haven't been to school. But,
no doubt.
But yeah, it's working out and it's awesome.
So high school, like I look at a lot of kids, whether it be skiing or any racing or anything, any kid who's growing up and like really pursuing their passion, they'll be at private school or ski school or like have a tutor on the road with them. Did any of that stuff apply to you, or did you just do it old school?
I did it old school. Yeah, just like Oakville Trafalgar High School, classic public school.
Yeah.
And went there, and they were pretty accommodating. And I would just kind of get the work ahead of time for my teachers, go do it on the road, come back, maybe go in at lunchtime and get them to teach me a couple things that I didn't understand. And yeah, that was it. I didn't even get like a free credit for gym class while I was out skiing and stuff. And I think the funniest thing of that whole like high school situation is I wanted to join the ski team with my friends in like grade 9 or 10 or something. And I missed the tryout day at Mount St. Louis or something because I was in Colorado at a contest, like competing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh yeah, I was out doing this contest, blah, blah, blah. Like, and they're like, yeah, no, sorry. Like, you don't make the team. You don't make the team. I'm like, all right, dude, like, sick.
That's hilarious. That teacher just had a bone to pick, man.
He was just got out on the wrong side of the bed that day for sure.
So to go back to your career, you're at X Games, which is like anyone like our age growing up, like you watch X Games, like whatever it was, like throw on freestyle, motocross, whatever, like it was the pinnacle of action sports. But so you're saying you have a tough season. Like, do you get on the podium at all that first season?
No.
Okay.
First couple seasons too.
Even
like after that, I struggled for a while.
What changed that?
It's tough to say. Looking back, like it was, I think, a combination of just applying too much pressure to myself of like all these dreams that I want to achieve, and being at X Games, I'm like, okay, I'm here. Seize the moment. This could be the only time you get to do this, blah, blah, blah. Like land the craziest run you can possibly do. And then I learned to kind of tone it back a little bit, take a more relaxed approach to it all, and working with like sports psychologists and all that sort of stuff.
Interesting.
To kind of, I guess, just go along a more structured plan throughout my season. I was also going to every event and trying to do a different run every time.
Why? Because of what you thought the judges would think?
Yeah, just I wanted to do something crazy, and I'm like, okay, well, this run wouldn't work here, so I'll do this, that, blah, blah, blah. And then as I got older, I realized, like, okay, just train these 3 tricks. There's only 3 jumps. Do those at every contest throughout the year. It's a little bit more boring to do that, but you're at a competition, you're there to land a run,
right?
You know?
Sports psychology, like that's interesting. That's something I've thought about. I've heard guys in racing like that has completely changed things for them. How does that work? Like, they're obviously not a skier or a skier at your level. How do you like talk through your career or your sport with them?
It's kind of like you just explain like your feelings to them, and I would talk to them before a contest and after a contest, recap how I felt throughout it. And you take what you can from the good days and then try to reenact that in the future, and you take what you can from the bad days and learn from it going forward. It's more of just like picking apart the intricate stuff that you wouldn't really think about all the time.
Okay.
Or you're like, okay, well, why am I overthinking this? Like, okay, what kind of breathing stuff can I do to help myself get in the right mindset before I drop into the course? And getting like a proper process or plan to go through every time before you go into a contest run.
Okay, maybe I guess like to take some of the unknown or the anxiety out of it, where it's like you don't even think about the other stuff. You're just thinking about your run.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh. So, and I talk about this like just with my buddies or about racing, because it's a similar deal with racing and skiing in different manners, because skiing is such a new sport. But there's this, and even hockey, I guess, there's this group that probably just started with guys your age. You're born in 98?
97.
97, okay. Where like they were doing it from the get. They were doing it from a very young age. Whereas like racing used to be like you didn't get into a car until you were 30. Like you were, it was a man sport. Same with hockey back in the day, right?
Yeah.
So you were that first group of kids coming up.
Yeah,
that had done it. Like anyone older than me wouldn't have seen twin tips till they were a teenager.
I guess you're right. Yeah, I didn't really think of it that way.
And like I look at it now in racing, and it's like this shit, man. The kids are good. Like,
dude,
really
that
good.
is the most relatable comment. Like, it's insane nowadays, because I've kind of gone through the full circle of it all, where I was this little kid getting on the team, didn't know anyone, kind of whatever, shy guy, hang out in my room most of the time, and now all of a sudden, fast forward, I'm one of the older guys on the team, and there's 15-year-olds that are getting brought up.
Right.
And they can do all the tricks, and I'm like, well, here we go.
Yeah.
Kind of like nipping at the heels, and pushes you a little bit as well, which is super cool. But yeah, it's definitely changed it a lot for me. You know, I'm used to having older people around all the time.
Right.
And kind of like when I was a kid, obviously, like mentors to me. And now it's just weird hanging out with like younger kids all the time on the road, to be honest.
No, I understand. I understand definitely being the younger kid.
Yeah.
And that like trying to be cool and you know, like not say something dumb and like looking up to these guys. Yeah. Now that you like that you're kind of probably peak career age.
Yeah.
Are you competing against any older guys, or maybe take it back a few years? Are you looking at those older guys with a little bit of sympathy? Like they didn't quite have the same chances that I had. Like they didn't hit the airbags at 10 and 11 years old. Was that the case?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And now it's crazy. Even like airbags and then social media. It's like someone does a new trick. A 15-year-old kid sees it, and the next day you see a video of him doing it. And you're like, what? Like that is just absolutely insane. Like back in the day, Bobby Brown, a professional skier, he did the first triple cork on skis. And it was this crazy release video, like high production thing. They built a private jump up in a special section of the mountain where no one could see it. And now when someone does a new trick, it's just on a random jump in a random terrain park filmed on an iPhone or a GoPro and uploaded to Instagram. Like it's wild.
So is that how like there's probably a number of ways, but how has social media changed skiing? That's one of the ways for sure.
That's one of the ways, because now you can see what everyone's doing throughout the year.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of know going into the season, after seeing videos of everyone's training, you know what kind of tricks are going to be thrown at all the contests. And for the kids, like they get to see all these crazy tricks all the time, and kind of you can learn from watching video of how people do stuff and take from it and bring it to your airbag and learn it on there, because there's no real risk with that.
So learning new tricks now, and I guess competition, have you had any like really hard slams, like where you've broken bones and like been out for a period of time?
I've been super lucky with injuries, knock on wood, throughout my career. But yeah, like one bad one for me, it wasn't too bad. It was at X Games in 2018.
Okay.
Or maybe 2019. But I landed
concussion?
No. Luckily, I've avoided concussions, though, which
Good.
I think that's my main focus. It's pretty important. But yeah, I just took like a little fall at X Games, and knee was like a little bit sore, swollen. We had world championships the next week. So I just took some time off and was like on the bike, spinning, doing stretches, blah, 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 physio, all that. And then go there, try to ski. It still hurts. I push through, do the contest, make finals, and then don't land my stuff in finals. But then it was super painful, so I went home, got an MRI in Buffalo, and yeah, it came back that I had a fracture in my tibial plateau. which is like just below the knee in there.
Okay, yep.
So essentially I had a broken leg and didn't know it at the time.
So you skied a full contest with a broken leg?
Yeah, which was just young, dumb, like kind of push through. I got to do this contest kind of thing.
Were you taking painkillers for it?
Yeah, I was just having some Tylenol 500 or whatever.
Yeah. Jeez. So you went to Buffalo and they're like, hey, your leg's broken.
Yeah. But that was like an easy one. It was no ligaments, so it's just a bone. Like you wait for it to heal. It was about a month, and then re-strengthen it, and then you're good to go.
So bone's better than ligaments.
Yeah.
In skiing.
Doesn't nag around afterwards. Like once it's healed, it's healed.
Right. So what do you, like, you've been able to prevent or avoid these injuries. What do you do for, like, are you actively working out to prevent injuries?
Yeah, so I have a strength coach he lives in Toronto.
Okay.
And I see him a couple times a week. I started working with him like 7 or 8 years ago now, which is pretty crazy. And yeah, so he's just been really good about keeping me on it in the summer and off season and all that. And I think it's super important. Like this year I had a couple of the heaviest slams I've ever had and walked away unscathed. And I think I owe a lot of that to him for pushing me and building these programs that can make me, a little bit more lenient to falls.
What do the programs look like? Like it's not like going into the gym and bodybuilding.
No, it's all like, because when you think about it with physics and stuff, it's like you don't want to build all this crazy muscle and have more mass coming down when you fall.
Right.
Like the heavier you are, the more impact, the more injured you're going to get. So
small guy sport.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you got to stay super lean, but be strong, flexible, and endurance is a big one for slopestyle as well, because you're like in that crazy mental focus zone and doing 3 to 4 jumps and 3 rails throughout the run. So you get to the bottom and you're pretty exhausted. So just about keeping your endurance up and getting through that.
So what does a workout look like? Is it like kind of like, I guess, CrossFit style, or just like kind of all this mobility stuff? And then are you doing other stuff like running or cycling to stay fit?
I don't actually run or cycle. Running for me, kind of, it's just a lot of impact on the knees throughout. So I want to avoid that because I have enough of that while I ski.
Yeah, no kidding.
But yeah, our programs are just like a nice mobility warm up for about 30 minutes, and then squats and stuff, still deadlifts, and it's like a pretty standard workout, honestly, with like some sports specific stuff thrown in there and just switching it up throughout the year. So I'm not really just doing the same thing all the time and trying to push more weight at that one thing. It's a lot about like speed and agility, not necessarily like the heaviest weight you can pull, but say like with a deadlift, you want to be able to pull it up like as fast as you possibly can.
Right.
It's kind of mimicking like popping off of a jump.
Sure. Yeah. So you were saying something earlier about visualization, and that's how you learn tricks. And I was thinking about this before the podcast, like visualization, any sports psychologist will, tell you that, or anyone will tell you that really in life to get what you want. Like I think about it for racing, I can visualize a perfect lap. I can't visualize a whole race because there's so many variables. Hockey, you can kind of visualize a little bit, but skiing, you can visualize the whole run, like with all variables included, and pull it off. Like it has to be the most visualizable sport there is.
For sure. Yeah. And there's like, I was talking to one of my friends about this recently. Like there's 2 different ways to visualize. You can visualize in the third person, or you can visualize
in the first person.
Yeah, exactly.
As the player one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I find for me, visualizing as player one, as you said, is like definitely more effective, but it takes a lot less effort to visualize in the third person. Because I can visualize watching myself do these tricks throughout the run perfectly. Yeah, which is nice to do right before a contest, because sometimes when you're trying to do it in the first person, you're like, oh shit, well this happened last time, and you have that in your head. So like,
right,
just trying to erase the thought of that happening,
So do you do it both ways?
Yeah.
Okay.
I try to have like a broad range of it, just kind of get the best sort of outcome.
Interesting. And third person wouldn't have really been possible before everyone was filming everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, but I mean, you see a video of every run you do, so you know what it's all looking like. And
right.
Even just for like piecing a run together, that's what visualization is so good for. Sometimes in practice, the morning of finals or something, you only get an hour or 30 minutes to warm up, so you don't necessarily have the time to build up to your full run. So you can do all your tricks individually, and then you go up, you have a 15-minute break before you do your run, you visualize it all together then. And that also saves you a little bit of energy. So depending on how confident you are with the run, you don't always have to do it right before the contest in practice, I find.
Right. Do you get like as you're saying that, piecing together this banger of a run, like, and you don't necessarily want to do it in practice? Is it just because it's so like mentally demanding? Like, holy shit, I'm about to throw down.
Yeah, definitely that. Mentally demanding, physically demanding, and risk of falling and getting hurt right before the contest sometimes too. I mean, that's not the best way to go about it. I prefer to go and do my full run before.
Right.
But sometimes that takes a lot out of you, and it's a lot harder to do a full run when you're not in a contest because you don't have that crazy contest adrenaline, jitters, like you feel like you could jump off a 10-story building and be perfectly fine.
Right. Right. Yeah, no, I get that feeling for sure. So you're saying visualizing in the third person, is that about style a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely, which is a huge aspect of it all. Right. You're like, because in the first person, you can't really see how it's looking. You can feel it, but from the third person, you can visualize how it's looking. Like, oh, I want to come out of it like this, or like, have my legs here at that point of it.
Right. It's funny. It's one of those sports, like it's judged, and you think of like a judged sport, and you think of the average person automatically thinks of figure skating or something, right?
Yeah.
And like, so it's a performance art. Like, you're performing for the judges. Obviously, you're performing for the other skiers, like, as well. But, you want to make it look good. Where do you kind of draw that inspiration from? Is it from other skiers? Like, I've heard people talk about, like, looking to other sports.
Yeah.
Do you get any of that?
For sure. Definitely, like, other skiers, obviously, it's easy to relate to. But I think other sports is where a lot more unique, individualized style comes from. So whether you take something from skateboarding or something from surfing or something crazy gnarly from mountain biking and like put that towards your personal style, or even like piecing from like how a skateboarder would dress and like dressing like that. And then they get the influence that like reminds them of skateboarding, and they get this cool little hint of that if they like skateboarding and they're watching it,
Yeah, for sure. And like people who aren't in skiing or like in the culture, like the way you dress is so important, or different skiers think it's super important.
Oh yeah. And even like looking back on this contest season, there's a couple of guys that don't necessarily wear the clothes that suit their skiing the most. And I think that they're judged super harshly because of that, because their skiing could look so much better if they were, for example, like, in skiing, it's better to wear baggier clothes because it's way, way harder to notice someone's flaws when they have all these baggy clothes on. When they've got skinny clothes on and tight pants, you can see every little flaw.
Right.
So I think some guys are being like judged way too harshly because of that.
Right. And where do you land? Somewhere in the middle?
I'm kind of in the middle. I don't want to be like trying to dress like a gangster, like baggies, 5XL, everything, but I'm also a tall guy, so like I wear 2XL, but it's pretty fitted on me. Right. But I don't know. I wear what's most comfortable for me. Yeah. I can like move around the most on skis.
For sure. Before this, I watched one of your runs, and you have your sleeves rolled up, and it's like this like working class, like working hard. I digged it.
Yeah, I love that. I love skiing with my sleeves rolled up.
Why?
I don't know. It just feels good. It's like one of those things, like most contest days, it'd be hard for you to find a video of me competing in a jacket.
Right.
Even if it's minus 20, I'll be up there in a hoodie. I just love the feeling of a hoodie, how much I can move in it.
Right.
And I don't know. It's kind of weird. And then I roll my sleeves up. It also feels good, like right before a contest, like rolling your sleeves up, like let's get to business kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure. So do you look up to, like, did you have a mentor growing up in skiing? Or a guy you like really wanted to emulate and look up to, or in other sports too? Yeah,
not necessarily like I had some mentors and coaches and stuff, and like other athletes just chatting a little bit with. Like I looked up to Bobby Brown growing up. He was winning all the contests at the time, doing a lot of cool stuff in filming at the time. And so I kind of thought he was like the best of the best, and I wanted to emulate him. And I got to hang out with him when I was super young. I was like 12 years old and got to go do a trampoline camp with him, and he
cool.
made a video of the whole thing and put me in it, and it was so cool for me. Like that was, and I have so much respect for him for doing that, because he did not have to do that at all, but he gave me the time of day, and I think that kind of left a mark on me to do that to young kids now. Like, bring them up, be super nice with them, always just ski with them and cruise with them, because they're so stoked on skiing, and it gets you excited too.
Right. Yeah, no, for sure. That's so important. And like, you've been there, I've been there, like being that little kid in whatever sport, like to go see the guy, it's like meeting Jesus Christ, right?
Yeah,
like it's like,
exactly.
Yeah,
this superhero's right in front of you now, and like you realize like, oh, they're actually a real person too,
and it would just crush you if they were a dick.
Yeah, it'd be the worst thing ever.
Yeah. So do you like, it's funny, I forget who it was, someone told me respond to everyone, like respond to everyone you can. Yeah, any fan, whatever. Do you make an effort to do that?
Oh yeah, for sure. It's tough when you're at like for example at the Olympics.
Sure.
You get hundreds and hundreds of messages like every day, so it's pretty hard when you're there and you're trying to like focus on this contest. But I always try to go back and respond to everyone that I can.
That's good.
Yeah, I think that's super important. It's you're no different than everyone else. Like, you can respond to a message, it'll take 5 seconds.
Yeah. So the Olympics. This is your. Did you go to? You went to the last Olympics, right? And that's 2018.
Yeah.
South Korea.
Mm-hmm.
How did that go?
That one was awesome. That one was like really, really cool for me, because going into the season, basically how the qualifying process works is the season prior to and then leading up to the games of that season are what counts to qualify to get there. And the season prior, I didn't have any good results.
Okay.
So over the summer, I was stressed. And this is where that period ended of me kind of struggling to do well at these bigger contests, was the year of the 2018 Olympics.
Okay.
And everything just sort of like started falling into place. I got a couple of podiums, like 3 podiums that season. I hadn't podiumed in a couple of years, like leading up to the Olympics. So nice. I was on cloud 9 at this point. I'm like, I'm going to get to go. This is unreal. And then, yeah, they announced the team and I was on it and went there and kind of just went in with the mindset of like, I've achieved this dream of going to the Olympics. I didn't actually feel a crazy amount of pressure when I was there, because I was just so happy to be there and wanted to take it all in. And it was so much different than anything that we'd experienced before.
In what way?
Just the whole like show behind it, the athlete village, like the crazy, crazy grandstands and all the people watching, and it being the Olympics, and it's on TV and everyone in the whole world is talking about it while it's going on.
So the athlete village, does it live up to the reputation of like handing out free condoms, like full mayhem? Like,
I mean, both times I've gone to the Olympics, I have a girlfriend.
Okay.
So like,
no comment.
Not me.
Yeah.
But no, like everyone says like it's this crazy sex fest, but like I didn't hear anything crazy personally.
Sure.
Like they do have the bowls of condoms, but like I mean, personally I think university's probably a little crazier.
Fair enough. Yeah, you guys are like I never understood it, because I'm like, everyone's an athlete, everyone has to perform. It's not like people are partying. Alcohol is definitely the lubricant for that type of behavior.
Yeah.
It just never made complete sense to me.
No. I mean, I'm sure it does happen and stuff, but I think they like overhype it in the media, as they do a lot of things around like Olympics and all those big events. Yeah.
So where'd you finish in that Olympics?
That Olympics, I came 6th, which was like, for me, it was awesome, but
super respectable.
But I was also a little bummed coming out of that, because I'd done so well prior to it in that season. I was like, I can do this for sure. I have the run to do it. I just had like some small mistakes in the run, but yeah, I was still thrilled with that, and able to take it home like a top 10, top 8 at the Olympics was awesome.
Right. Did the Olympic stage, because that was your first time on the proper world stage where people outside of skiing are paying attention.
Yeah.
Did that bring you any new sponsors?
For me, no.
Okay.
No, and I think that was the weird thing, is like with the Olympics bringing in slopestyle and now big air skiing as well, I thought it would bring so much more of that, the non-endemic brands, into the industry. But it's kind of like it'll bring in a couple of deals for the guy who wins, for sure, and those will be pretty lucrative. But there's not a whole lot more that comes to it. Hopefully there is in the future now that I've gone twice.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it just depends on how you do there, really.
Do the Olympics pay anything?
No.
Okay.
And I mean, I think the nations individually have their own set out amounts of prize money they'll give to athletes.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Because I've heard people talking about getting money, and then I'm like, don't the Olympics, they don't pay anything because it's for amateur athletes or whatever that means.
Yeah.
So Canada will pay out the athletes? Okay.
Yeah, and then there's like, it's funny to hear which nations pay what. Because I know like Thailand or something, you win gold, it's like $1 million or something.
Really?
Because there's not that many people from Thailand going and competing in these disciplines.
Right.
So they can afford to pay for someone to win the Winter Olympics from there if they do.
Right.
Yeah. Whereas Canada, we have such a stacked field of people, that would be just impossible.
No, for Winter Olympics anyways. Like, yeah. Interesting. So you finished 6th, top 10. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, this Olympics, you just got back from the Olympics, a couple months ago. How was that different? Like, you guys went to China.
Yeah.
Like, at a pretty gnarly time.
Yeah, it was crazy. And, like, the wildest part about it is the first time I'd gone to China was, I guess, like 2 years ago now and a bit, right at the very start of COVID.
Okay. Really?
Before it was a known thing. So before masks, before like testing, all of that, none of that was a thing. Before going, we'd heard that there was this new virus, but there was no it wasn't a big deal yet.
Right.
And so we go over to China, we're like there competing, walking around, no masks and stuff, obviously, like partying after the event. And then come home that winter, a bunch of people got sick. But there's no way to know what it was, if it was COVID from the start. And yeah, it went on throughout the winter, and then everything just boom, shut down. So to go back kind of near the end of it all was crazy.
Yeah. Did you guys, do you get I've got so many questions about going to China. Do you get a talking to from a Canadian official? Hey, these are the rules. This is what you say. This is what you definitely don't say. We don't need anyone being disappeared. Everyone needs to come home.
Kind of just one of those no comment things. They send out an email with a bunch of stuff that you can say if media ask you certain questions, but kind of moral of the story is just avoid those questions, avoid commenting on certain things, and won't get into specifics. But yeah, so just avoid those subjects at all costs.
Yeah.
It's sort of the play when you go over there. But it was great. We had such a good time. The food over there was good. All the volunteers were amazing. And it wasn't as weird being in the middle of a pandemic at the Olympics as I thought.
Right. I'm sure you guys are treated pretty well as global athletes.
Yeah.
What did you...
With all the world's eyes on them.
No kidding. I guess they're not going to do anything funny. So you said the food was good. How does that work? Does every athlete eat the same thing given to you by China?
So they have a 24-hour-a-day cafeteria.
Okay.
With all sorts of food from around the world to try and accommodate everyone from different places.
Okay.
And it was pretty good. They also had a KFC and a Pizza Hut, I think.
For the Americans?
Yeah. I mean, I went a couple times too. But yeah, no, see, there was plenty of food to eat, and yeah, you can just kind of walk in there whenever you want and get whatever you want. Free ice cream, not so bad.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Do you? I'm kind of astounded to hear that you're eating the KFC during the event. Do you follow a strict diet or anything?
Not really. No.
Okay.
No, I'll be honest. Yeah, my favorite food group is chicken fingers, if you can call that a food group.
Understood.
Yeah. No, I obviously eat well and stuff throughout the winter, but yeah, I love a good chicken finger every now and again.
Right. Fair enough. You got to live too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So who goes with you to the Olympics? As far as support, do you have physio people coming? Do you have I don't know if you have a nutritionist or not coming, but what's kind of the support group there?
So there was a ton of staff. We had doctors, sports psychologists, trainers, coaches, the people who run the whole program, and yeah, a lot of people who I don't know what their role was, right. But there was a lot of staff there for sure. And so whenever you need something, there's someone there to help you with it.
Okay.
Canada does it like really proper. We had everything we could have possibly needed there. And even like in the accommodations we were at, they have all sorts of snacks and stuff from Canada, and they set up like video game stuff and everything, like rooms to try and make you feel at home while you're over there.
Interesting. So how did the Olympics go as far as expectations, performance, everything? I mean, I watched a little.
Yeah, going into this one, I was like way more confident about doing well. Like I kind of had more expectations on myself to do well, and the goal was to win.
Okay.
Or at least get on the podium kind of thing.
But to win.
Yeah, but to win.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know how it is.
Yep.
And yeah, like I had my tricks lined up and everything was going super well, and like the off-season training going into it. And at X Games a couple of weeks before, I had like 2 of the heaviest slams I've probably ever had back to back, doing the tricks that I wanted to do at the Olympics in big air. So I put like a big mental block on myself going into that event, and going into practice, get there, and I like go to do it. I'm like, dude, like all I'm thinking of is negative stuff at this point. So I kind of shifted my focus and was like, okay, this isn't going to work. I'm going to do a different trick. So I went and learned like a completely new trick for me in practice right before the contest. Did it once, did it in qualifiers, made finals. That was great.
And you're talking big air.
This is big air.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for anyone who doesn't know, one jump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the way they do it, yeah, it's one jump, but you have to qualify with 2 different tricks.
Okay.
And then in finals, you also do just 2 tricks.
2 tricks.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you get 3 attempts to land those 2.
Okay.
So get through to finals, feeling super good, and I decide, like, you know what, like, fuck it kind of thing. I'm going to try and do those ones that I'm worried about. Like, if there's any time to go do it, it's right now.
Yeah.
So competition comes around. I dropped the start of the order. It's reverse order because I just barely squeaked into finals. And land my first run, one of those jumps that I was super worried about, better than I'd ever done it. And get down, waiting for the score, comes in. It was like a 93 out of 100, which is like a really good score for slow or for big air, sorry.
Okay.
And so I'm on like super high at this point. I'm like, all right, let's go. Like got 2 more runs to try and land this next trick, which is one that arguably I was more confident about.
Okay.
And get back up top, and I think I got like something happened, like maybe got a little bit too ahead of myself mentally, and was like thinking, okay, well, all I have to do is land this, and then I'm on the podium at the Olympics.
Right.
And yeah, just kind of lost the focus with that, I think, and a couple of things went wrong on that trick. The first time I was super close, just maybe went a little bit too big, so landed and just kind of slipped over, and then the second time just rushed it off takeoff. So that was a pretty rough moment, like being right there and feeling like that close to achieving this, and then all of a sudden just boom.
Yeah. So you're at the bottom of the jump, falling on the last one. Like, how do you feel right then?
I just took a moment and just like laid there. I mean, I wanted to get up because make sure everyone doesn't think I'm hurt kind of thing, but I just laid there and was like, man, that really just happened.
Yeah.
Gotta wait 4 more years now.
Which is crazy. That's crazy about the Olympics.
Yeah. But the good thing was we still had slopestyle to come, which was my favorite discipline.
Okay.
And that actually practice started the next day. So it was very back-to-back over there.
Wow.
Which was tough on the body because it's the Olympics, you know, in practice you're going as hard as you possibly can the whole time. So we finish up there. We drive 4 hours up into the mountains and have practice the next morning.
Oh, so totally different spot.
Yeah.
Right, because I saw pictures of slopestyle, and it was like in this freaking industrial area or something.
Big air, yeah.
Or big air, sorry,
yeah. It was crazy. It was such a weird venue. But one of the greatest jumps, like so good.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It was incredible.
Okay.
But just weird when you're looking around and you see like cooling towers from this old steel mill. And
Crazy.
Yeah. Looks like you're in the Simpsons world, honestly.
Oh, with like, where Homer works at the nuclear
those
plant.
towers. Yeah. Everyone thought they were nuclear towers, and they're like, why are we doing this event in a nuclear village? Like, what's going on?
Imagine.
Yeah. But it was pretty cool the way they did it. Like, the jump was built, it's a permanent structure in that area.
Okay.
Out of fully recycled steel from this old steel mill that they crushed and tore down before the last Olympics there to, like, reduce pollution.
Okay.
So everyone was like hating on it for being like not environmentally friendly and blah, 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 such a bad look. But it's actually like they're actually doing a lot.
The most environmentally friendly thing China's doing.
Exactly. Like more than on a ski hill.
Yeah. So the next day you guys drive 4 hours to a real mountain?
Yeah. Well, that night, right after we finish
Oh,
up,
geez.
pack up all the bags and get on to the next village.
Wow.
Practice the next morning, 9 a.m. See you bright and early kind of thing.
Jeez. And how did slopestyle go?
That one didn't go so well.
Okay.
I'd built this run like through practice that I think would have done super well for me. And I kind of strive in the rail section of a slopestyle course,
Yep.
which is usually at the top. And I just wanted to go crazy on the rails and do some like, that's where I was going to stand out, I told myself.
Sure.
And figured out this rail run. It was super good. It was working for me in practice, but I was more nervous for that than the jumps that I was doing in the competition. And competition comes around, get through the rails, awesome, feeling so good going to the jumps. Kind of going into the second jump and just hit like, I don't know if I slipped or if I hit a rut or something, so I kind of slipped on the takeoff and had to pull out of my trick.
Oh, really? Like
Yeah.
that bad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like doing a double, have to like open up, just do a single.
Yeah.
Bummed, but I'm like, okay, I have another run to go do this. Top section, super good again. I'm like, holy shit, I can't believe I landed that rail run twice in a row.
Okay.
Go into the first jump, and which in practice I'd been going dead, like pretty much dead straight into, because
Okay.
it was like, that was the speed you had to follow, and got a bad tailwind and did the same speed and just wasn't paying attention to the flags or something and just got sailed to the bottom and couldn't hang on to it. Easiest trick in my run.
Oh, my goodness. So many
Yeah.
variables.
That's the thing. It's just like, yeah, that's how competitions are. But that's what's so cool about them too,
Yep.
is being able to pull it off when it matters most. And I didn't there, and yeah, look to the future, do more of it.
Still got a long career, though.
Yeah, exactly.
So I love talking about like to get really granular. We were talking about it earlier, but that feeling. So we talked about the feeling at the top, like the nerves and
Yeah.
like that excitement. And it's easy. Like it's those things like when you're in school, you got to public speak and you hate that feeling. Like it's so easy to say, no, I don't like that.
Yeah.
That's one thing. But then during the run, what is that feeling like?
That's the craziest feeling. Like it's even more than at the top, I'd say. Because for me, I listen to music when I ski.
Okay.
So I put like 5 minutes before my comp run, I put the song I want to listen to on repeat.
What song's that?
It varies between all the contests. Like I can't even remember what it was at the Olympics anymore, but I know in 2018 it was Frank Ocean,
Okay.
which sounds so weird, but it was just nice and like calming, chills you
Okay.
out, chills the nerves.
So it's case by case, really.
Yeah, depends on your mood for the day. If you're feeling kind of tired and need a little pick me up, you'll listen to like, I don't know, some Meek Mill or something that'll just like get you in the zone,
Gangster
like Motley
rap,
Crue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, if you're like feeling super revved up, it's nice to just listen to something chill, like
Okay.
Frank Ocean, whatever. Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, what's that feeling like?
it's crazy. Like I will be in the start gate, holding my phone in my pocket, like turning it up to full volume because I feel like I can't hear it. And then you drop in, you kind of have like some thoughts going into the first feature. And then as soon as you're on the first feature, which is usually a rail, boom, blackout mindset. Just can't hear anything, can't hear your music, fully in the zone, not a single thought in your head. Super weird. Like the craziest, trippiest feeling I think that I've ever had in my life. But yeah, and it happens a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's super cool. I love it.
So that's the feeling you're chasing?
Yeah, and you honestly feel like a superhero. It's wild because you're going down, and like I was saying earlier in this conversation, like it's so much easier to do your full run in a contest with that adrenaline and everything. So you're going into the jump, and you're like, oh, this is gonna be easy. Whereas in practice, you're like a little bit nervous, thinking about this or that on it, but in competition, it just like all comes like that. It's super cool.
Right. Do you ever like I get these it's so funny how there is some similarities between like that competition skiing and racing. I've had it once in my life where I was racing and I was just became the witness. And I was kind of like laughing at myself. I'm like, oh my goodness, look, he's going to go downshift here and he's going to turn in here. Oh, and like I just like hung on to it for a little while. Have you ever had that?
Yeah, I've had that where you're thinking about maybe it's stuff you shouldn't be thinking of while you're doing this stuff.
Right, it's like you're cheating, like you're, and I can think about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's super weird when that happens, but that's rare for me. Like I'm usually just, boom, like only looking forward, not a thought in my brain.
Right, but you've had that where you're almost like witnessing yourself do it.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you're visualizing before it. Are you spiritual? Do you meditate on it? Do you pray before you do a run?
I've done like a little bit of meditation stuff in the past, but I won't do that like at the top of the course.
Right.
Like I've done that throughout the summers and off season to work on my like mental game and kind of being able to just shut everything off. Say I have a rough practice, being able to go and take 10 minutes, do some breathing and go back to it and like fully reset.
Yep.
So I've done some of that stuff in the summer, but usually for me, it's just like about what I learned from my sports psychologist. So just taking that time, following that plan, doing that breathing, thinking like doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Reminding myself that I'm sliding down frozen water on a hill with pieces of wood strapped to my feet. Like it's going to be okay no matter what happens here, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Man, losing is very humbling.
Yeah. Big time.
Yeah. I want to, I guess, what I love so much about skiing, and I just skied in the park growing up because it was here. I grew up in Ontario.
Yeah.
But I can get this feeling where I'm skiing super fast through the trees where it's almost like racing for me, where I'm like, it requires all of my attention.
Yeah.
Do you get that same feeling in the park, or do you, when you get an opportunity to go to a big ski hill, do you enjoy that type of skiing?
Oh, I love that type of skiing.
Okay.
That's what I'm looking forward to now. Like this next trip that I'm going on, I'm not competing anymore this year. All the contests are done for me.
Nice.
And so I'm going to these hills to do like photo shoots for some of my sponsors, and most of that stuff's not happening in the park.
Right.
So I'll be able to go and do some other aspects of skiing. It's obviously a lot of it's like photo shoots and just rip down here, get a cool photo of you doing a slash and stuff. But it's like I get to get out of the park and go into different areas, you know, which is super cool.
So your whole career has been kind of in the park. It's a natural progression for skiers as they get older to either go kind of filming or go into the backcountry.
Yeah.
Is that which, you know, for the layman is, you know, either by helicopter or by ski touring or by snowmobile up into the mountains and ski that. Is that a goal for you going forward, or are you still really focused on the competition stuff?
I'm still focused on the competition stuff right now, but as I get older, I think I'll definitely add a little bit more of that into what I do. I think it's such a cool side of skiing, and it's a good way to come out with some content that you'll have to look back on for the rest of your life and just go enjoy the mountains. The mountains are super humbling as well. So for me, I definitely have to do a lot more education before going full deep into the backcountry, you know, like whether that be avalanche courses or just stuff like that. But yeah, definitely something I want to do. I did one trip with Head Ski Brand. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago now, to Mount Baker, where I'm actually heading tomorrow. And we would ski tour up. We had a group of 4 or 5 skiers, 3 or so filmers, and we would tour up one day, find a zone, build a jump, shovel for 7 hours, go home, let it set overnight, tour up the next day, film on that, repeat, go do it somewhere else on the mountain. And I thought like the whole process of that was so cool. You kind of like, you're building these jumps and you realize how much goes into it. It's not like you just show up at a contest and you have these perfect jumps.
Right.
Like you're doing all that work yourself. So by the time it's built, you're like, this is going to work. You're not complaining about if it's a bumpy takeoff or whatever. You know, you're like, oh, this is the sickest, because you're like, I built it.
Right. Absolutely. So like, it's funny. Any skier who's a pro skier, you listen to, and it's just like, a ski movie did it for them, or there was one ski movie that like they just watched on repeat. And even going back, like Warren Miller's ski movies have been around forever, like bringing the mountains to the people in the city. Was that it for you? Like watching a ski movie, certain ski movies?
Definitely part of it, for sure. There's like several ski movies I look back on and I'm like, I remember watching that flick like 100 times. I don't even know how my parents would be walking through the house hearing the same soundtrack over and over again every single day. So yeah, that was definitely a huge part of it. And watching that and being like, I want to travel. I want to go ski these crazy cool mountains, or like, that park looks so good. I want to go ski there. Why can't we have rails like that here?
Yeah.
And that was definitely like, at that point, not necessarily me being like, oh, I want to be a pro skier. It's just like, I want to ski as much as I can. I would watch this movie and then I'd go like set up a rail in my backyard and go ski down the grass and try tricks on that.
Yeah. So do you have aspirations to have a movie part going forward?
Oh yeah, definitely like one of those passion projects that I want to do. And in skiing, as you'd know, there's a lot of urban skiing as well, which is like skiing in the streets. You find a handrail and you go and shovel and set it up and film a trick on that.
Okay.
I definitely want to take some time one year to film one of those parts, an urban part.
Yep.
I think that's definitely a passion project of mine. Those were my favorite ski movie segments when I was younger. So that's something I'd want to do.
And a lot easier to, I don't want to say easier, but like more accessible than the backcountry stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
And you already have the tricks.
Yeah.
So you could go and bang out a part in a winter.
Theoretically, yeah. I think it'd be pretty humbling at the same time. Definitely take a couple of slams, but yeah, that's something I want to do. And then obviously, like, I kind of want to try and tap into all aspects of skiing. Like going into the backcountry, there's so much that I could learn as well, which I think would be really cool. So kind of want to tap into that as well. But got plenty of time, right? Can try and tick all the boxes.
Right. So how, you know, everyone kind of looks into their 5-year, 10-year plan. How long do you want to stay a professional skier for? Do you have a plan after, or do you want to be like a guy like Mike Douglas that is a professional skier until he's physically can't anymore?
That's something I kind of take like day by day. I don't have a set plan.
Sure.
You know, I always have like a high school education I can fall back on and start taking university courses and stuff, which I think I'd like to do at some point. I don't want to be doing one thing and fixating on that my whole life. So,
I mean, there's lots of avenues out of the ski industry, though. Like, you're already so respected there. It could be anything. It could be, I look at guys who retire from racing and they're going to be a commentator or an analyst or something like that.
Yeah.
If it's your passion, like, does that stuff ever cross your mind?
It definitely does, but I also want to tap into, like, I don't know, a bunch of different industries in life. Okay. You know, I've been in the ski world since I was, 9, 10 years old. I'm 25 now, so by the time my career's done, I'm still fully invested in the ski world, and that's where I want to be.
Right.
But who knows if I'll feel that way when I'm done my career, maybe I'll want to go off into some completely other industry and see what that's all about and learn something completely new. But yeah, for now, like, I want to compete and film as long as I can, as long as I'm still loving it and enjoying it and can hold that initial passion. I think I'll stay doing what I'm doing.
Do you ever lose the passion, or like, it's such a fun thing to do? I can't imagine, but separating the anxiety of competing.
Yeah.
Do you ever lose the passion for skiing? Or do you, and if you do, even if you don't want to admit it a little bit, like, do you use something to like renew that passion?
For sure. I think like a lot of people feel that way at some point throughout their career. And like I was talking about earlier, it's easy to fall into that loophole of just going through the motions. Like, you're going to a contest, you're going to do these tricks, you're going to go to the next one, you're going to do the same thing on repeat. And at some points you're kind of like, I just want to go ski, or you're like super sore and you don't want to go out for this contest, but you push through to do that, and then you're even more sore and it gets harder each time.
Yeah. And
just with like the travel and stuff, as you get older, sometimes it's nice to just chill out at home and do something a little bit different, because I find contest, I'm sure you can relate, sometimes you feel a little bit burnt out at the end of it.
Yeah.
So for me, the refresher is to just come home, go skiing in Ontario, hit some rails, hit some little jumps, see some stoked out kids, and just remind yourself why you got into it in the first place.
Right.
I think that's always something that'll ground you and bring that passion back.
Does your girlfriend get upset with your travel schedule?
She's super good with it, actually. She's really good with it, especially like this year would have been a really tough one because leading up to the Olympics with COVID, obviously there's all these testing protocols and I have to like test to do these contests to try to qualify to go there. So I was on like lockdown mode, like see no one mode.
Right.
So she was super good about like taking space and not doing anything that would be crazy high risk in order, or like testing before seeing me so that I could see her. And she got to come on a couple trips and stuff throughout the year. We went to Switzerland and Copper and Aspen. So like we make it work, and she's good with it. So it's awesome.
That's good. Yeah. And she can come along, and it's like those aren't bad places to go hang out.
No, not so bad at all.
Now I ask all my race car driver interviews this question, depending how confident I am, about cheating. Is there any cheating in skiing? Like I can't really see where there would be. Other than politics? There's
one controversial topic that's been kind of on the forefront for like a couple of years now, and that is in big air. I guess a little bit, not so much slopestyle, but more big air. People are starting to drop the poles.
Okay.
The tricks are getting so crazy.
Skiing with no poles.
Yeah.
Okay.
The tricks are getting so crazy, and obviously it's important to grab your ski. That's a huge style and execution aspect to it. And as anyone can imagine, you have a ski pole in your hand. It's a lot harder to grab onto a ski as well. So people doing all these big rotations are dropping the poles so that they can grab easier,
right,
and do these crazier grabs, and they're winning the contests. But it's not as like it's not like they're dropping it for a style aspect, or because like that's what they want to ski. They ski with poles not in these events, but then they'll drop them.
Okay, so there is some controversy there.
There's a little controversy, but it's how do you handle that? It's free skiing, It's like you can't throw a rule saying you have to have poles.
Right.
Yeah.
Are there even rules about like the ski and the binding and the boots?
Not really, no. Kind of like ride whatever you want.
Okay.
They were thinking of implementing some rules about waxes you couldn't use, but I haven't seen that come into effect. I don't know how they would really
police
have
that.
It. Like, there's not going to be a guy standing at the bottom of a mountain in Switzerland with like something scraping pieces off the bottom of your ski,
Right.
It'd be a lot of work to do that to everyone there.
Interesting. So there is controversy with the poles.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean,
do you have an opinion on it?
Everyone can do whatever they want.
Okay.
I just think it's harder to do a trick with poles. So it's harder to do a trick with poles, and I think like you're competing, the harder tricks get scored higher.
Sure.
So maybe take what you will from that.
Okay.
If it's a harder trick, maybe it should score higher. If they're making it easier without poles, maybe it shouldn't score as high.
Right.
I think that's kind of where I sit on it, but
I think that's a fair way around it.
I'm not sure if anything will happen because it's a touchy subject. There's so many people doing each side of it, keeping poles, dropping poles, but I'll keep my poles in my hands.
Right. There's no, like the Olympics is like synonymous with, blood doping and doing steroids and stuff. Is there really an advantage, do you think, in slopestyle or big air, like your disciplines?
I don't think so. Not that I know of, really, at least. Maybe there's some stuff that could help you like rehabilitate from an injury faster.
Sure.
But yeah, we're still being tested. Like throughout the past season, I was on a program where I have to enter in my whereabouts every day, every hour, and have an hour where I would for sure be there in order for them to come test me.
Okay.
So they'll show up at my house some days at like, I just put that time at like 5 a.m. to make sure like, I'll be there for sure.
Right.
I'm going to be grumpy when you knock on the door at 5 a.m. and ask me to pee in a cup, but I will be there.
So this is anywhere you are?
Yeah.
They can happen.
So it happened.
Did they knock on your parents' door?
That happened in Oakville before the last Olympics once at like 5 a.m. And then this year it happened in Switzerland at like 8 at night. And then it happened in Aspen as I was walking out the door to go to practice for big air at X Games. And they show up and you have to do it then.
Right.
And they'll stay with you until you do it, like right by your side. So I had to wait in my room.
They watch you pee.
Yeah.
Totally.
So I had to wait in my room for like 30 minutes till I had to go pee and fill out all the paperwork and stuff, and then missed a big chunk of practice, which was a bummer.
That's brutal.
I know. I'm like, dude, can you just come back later? He's like, no, now that I'm here, I have to do it now.
You didn't know your schedule?
No, I guess not.
I'd be pissed.
So that was a little annoying. But, yeah, I get it. I get it more like cross-country skiing, like other sports like that. I understand that's fully a thing. But I don't know if really anything would affect us that much in our performance.
Right. And like even like focus, like, you know how there's guys in golf who are cheating, trying to focus better. It's such a short run, like in skiing, that it wouldn't really. So other screening though, going back to China, was there anything that you were aware of, maybe you weren't aware of, like screening from the Chinese government for like who's coming in and like how all that process works? Like, did you have to get a visa and all that stuff?
We actually didn't have to get a visa this time. I had to do the visa process 2 years ago when I went, which was a pain. Like, go to the embassy in Toronto, like 52 pieces of paper, fill them all out, apply for that. But this time, having your Olympic accreditation validated you as being there for, like, it kind of worked as your visa at the same time. And there was just some testing protocols leading up to it, like 7 days out, you have to test. 3 days out, you have to test.
Oh, for COVID.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And then just like leading up to it at the airport, do a test, all that sort of stuff. And then when you land, test.
Right. Okay. So mainly COVID.
Yeah.
They're not like, do you think they like go through your social media and stuff and all that, like to make sure you're not like a political radical or something like that?
There's gotta be stuff like that. I mean, I don't know. Specifically, I didn't hear any stories. There was a lot of talk like before going of like, maybe bring a burner phone or like get a second phone to bring with you. But for me, I was just like, I don't really care. I got nothing to hide. I'll delete my banking app and then it'll be all good.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So talking money, what percentage of your income is from sponsorship versus, I guess, like winnings from prizes? And I'm sure they correlate a little bit. Like I'm sure your sponsors pay you
like
a
an
bonus,
incentive kind of thing
to win stuff.
Yeah, so it mainly comes from sponsors. It depends on how well you do throughout the season, but there's not like crazy prize money in skiing.
What is X Games pay to win?
X Games is $25,000.
Okay.
Which is good. That's like X Games and Dew Tour are the highest payouts.
Yep.
And then I think a World Cup is like 16 or 17 grand or something like that.
Okay.
Which is good, but like to do well off of that and like live your life, make a living off of it, if you were not having sponsors on the side, you'd have to be doing super well at everything kind of to make it work with all the travel expenses and everything in addition to that, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
So you're not banking, like I'm sure you're projecting your yearly income with a couple podiums and whatnot, but you're not banking on winning every event you go to.
No, thankfully not. Yeah, I'm super happy, and like I have a great group of supportive sponsors. Shout out to them. And
what are they? So you've had Monster for years now.
Yeah. So Monster Energy, Head Skis, Giro, which is helmets and goggles, and then Oneil is my clothing sponsor.
Right.
Yeah.
So does that cover all the bases? Do you have room? I guess you can get kind of out of industry sponsors. Like I see people who are sponsored by like Toyota or Subaru or something.
Yeah.
Are you hunting those, or is your agent hunting those actively?
Yeah, I'm always trying. Like I think it would be awesome, and especially like, I would love a car sponsor. I think that would be the sickest thing ever. I mean, I
Lamborghini.
Yeah. Imagine. Yeah, I don't think it's the right market for them. The market of like, 15 to 30-year-olds, like not too many of them are buying Lambo.
I guess that's the issue.
Yeah.
So it's got to be like a Subaru or like a GM or something.
Yeah, it's like the demographics that fit that age group,
Right.
But yeah, like obviously agents hunting for stuff. I'm looking for any leads that I could find, obviously, and yeah.
Do you have like a marketing deck that you will send out with like pretty much everything broken down and what you can promise and what you might achieve that year as far as like viewership and stuff?
Yeah, exactly. So it's got like all the statistics and stuff on there, and just kind of like debrief, photo decks, all that sort of stuff. And that's kind of what he sends out, and I send out to some people as well. So
right.
Yeah.
Right on. Right on. Huh.
Yeah.
So it's funny. I interviewed Mike Powell, who does a big skiing podcast.
Yeah.
And I was asking him, because do you listen to his podcast?
Mm-hmm.
So he asks everyone like what they make.
Yeah.
He's so funny with that.
He's just straight up with it.
Straight up. So I asked him straight up.
Yeah.
Or close to it. And he's like, yeah, a good podcast should make 6 figures, like with 10 sponsors. He's like any good athlete should have 10 sponsors. I'm like, oh man, that's a lot. But so anyways, going to your sponsor deck and content, we live in this TikTok world now.
Yeah.
Are you working on creating content for social media? And are you doing that yourself?
Yeah.
Okay.
So right now I'm doing that like all myself. And something I think I want to try to do next year, it's expensive, but it's to bring someone kind of with me to be filming, taking photos, helping me do that content and edit that content.
Yeah.
Because it's tough when you're, for me, going contest to contest, it's like pretty tough to like take the time while you're on the hill to film something cool.
Right.
Or to ask another competitor to film something when they're practicing as well. Yeah. So it makes it a little bit tough, but that's kind of something I want to do more of throughout the next season to 2 seasons kind of thing, is get way more content uploaded way more frequently. Because this year was tough. Just I was so focused and like fixated on the whole Olympics thing that I definitely slacked with that a little bit. But yeah, back to scheduled programming and then some next year.
Yeah, it's one of those things like you can, however you feel about it, man, like that's where the eyeballs are.
Yeah.
Like you see it, everyone's on their phone. They're looking at TikTok and Instagram, and it's just where you have to be. Like I struggle with it for sure, and it's like, all right, I guess scheduled programming is how you got to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
So are you gonna have you're trying to have a guy come out and he'll ski, like he'll follow cam you and stuff?
Like someone to just like help me get frequent like quality content too, because I don't want my Instagram post to just be like a photo of me at the top of every single course with my thumbs up, like check me out, made it to Aspen kind of thing. Like that would have worked, 8 years ago, but now that's not really it anymore. You got to be making these videos and stuff and putting the trendy songs on so they go viral and all that. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff. It's a pretty simple thing, and it should be pretty straightforward, but it's just tough to have someone take the time to film those things while you're like in the middle of a contest.
Yeah.
And the coach is there like filming whatever from the knuckle, but
it's not the same.
He's got the wide angle mode, just holding it like this so he doesn't have to move.
Yeah. Because I look at it and like one, you could increase your exposure for finding sponsors. Mm-hmm. 2, you've got this like sexy content. Like you've got like viral potential content anytime you hit the slopes.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, man, I think that's a good play for
sure.
Yeah.
And I think the craziest part about it is like the videos that do hit are not the videos of you doing the craziest, riskiest stuff either.
Okay.
Because that's not relatable to most people.
Right.
So say I go do like a triple cork 18.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Joe from Scarborough is going to have no idea what that is and not care.
Yeah.
But you do a double backflip or something and everyone's like, oh, that's cool.
Right.
So like it's just doing stuff like that, or even like at the Olympics that I made a video of us just like sliding down the landing of the big air jump.
Okay.
On the first day there, just like slip and slide on our backs and stuff. And that one gets like over like a couple million views.
Right.
Versus like you doing your trick. It's not like funny or relatable. It's all about like funny, relatable content on socials, I think.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
And it's also just branching out of the ski niche market too.
Right.
And reaching people outside of that.
Right.
Yeah.
No, for sure. For sure. I just fired up a TikTok, sorry to say.
Yeah.
But
I felt bad about it when I did it too, man.
Yeah.
You're not the only one.
I got a freebie for you here. We tow you into a jump with a supercar and you do a double backflip. That'll go viral.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
That could work.
Easy.
Yeah. Man, thanks for coming out. We've been going for a while. Do you have any parting thoughts? Anything you want to tell the people?
Well, I'm looking forward to watching this guy in a race next year. That's for sure.
Right on. Yeah. Come out to Yeah, CTMP or Toronto Indy. Toronto is we were on Lakeshore like 2 years ago. We did the race on Lakeshore in Toronto, and then I went to an Iron Maiden concert across the street that night.
No, you
Yeah,
dude.
yeah, it was a good weekend.
That's sick. Well, yeah, I've watched the Toronto Indy before. I remember, what was it, Paul Tracy back in the day?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I remember going and watching that with my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, it would be sick to come out and watch. Maybe we go to a track day or something at some point, too.
Dude, for
Can
sure.
take my car out. You can show me around.
For sure. I do like...
Teach me a thing or two.
Yeah, I probably do like 3 or 4 like coaching days a year.
Nice.
And I have so much fun doing it. Like,
Yeah.
in the car, like you can get a guy in the passenger seat. I can get a guy going way faster than he should be going.
Yeah.
You know, just being like, brake now, back on the gas now.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd enjoy it.
Yeah, dude. Well, we should do it. Let's plan it.
100%.
Yeah.
Tell the people where they can find you. Social media.
Social media, all of them, just my full name, EVAN, MCEACHRAN. Tough one to spell, Evan Mceachran, but yeah, you can find me on there. And like we said, back to scheduled programming soon.
Yeah, same.
You'll see us on the track on TikTok in no time.
Oh my goodness. Oh man, I appreciate it. Thanks for taking the time.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it. Good to see you again.
So that was Evan Mceachran. Man, I hope things go more smoothly for him at the next Olympics, being a Canadian. Regardless, he's had a killer career so far, and I'm sure it'll continue for years to come. Be sure to follow him and myself on social media. Hopefully we can hook up over the summer, get him out to the racetrack, myself in the passenger seat, and maybe we'll set up one of those viral video shoots. So I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Please like, subscribe, whatever platform you're doing it on, and rate the podcast. It really helps. I sincerely appreciate each and every one of you guys listening. Adios.